take a break from your weather control machines, because today we're diving into the dark truth behind Aphmau's seemingly perfect world. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, where today we're going to uncover something that's been hiding in plain sight in Aphmau's latest video, something that will change how you see this whole world forever. You know how in most stories, when someone rich helps someone poor, it's a happy thing. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to see why that simple act might be more dangerous than you think in this world. Let's start with what seems like a normal sunny day. Our rich friends are just hanging out, having a great time. But wait, did you catch that first big clue? They're not just having a nice day, they're having a perfect day. And I mean literally perfect. The weather is exactly how they want it. Keep that in your back pocket, we'll come back to why that matters real soon. But then, boom. Our first look at the other side of this world. Some people stealing food. Now, usually in stories like this, we'd see the rich kids chase them down, catch them, and everyone learns a lesson about sharing. You know, standard kids show stuff. But that's not what happens here, not even close. Instead, we see something really weird. When they try to help to give food, what happens? The poor kids take more than what's offered. They don't just grab the food, they grab everything they can get their hands on. Now, why would they do that? Think about it. If this was just about being hungry, wouldn't they be happy with the food? But they're not. They're desperate for everything they can grab, almost like they know they won't get another chance. But here's where it gets really interesting. The guards. Did you notice how fast they showed up? How ready they were? Almost like their whole job is just keeping these two groups apart. Not protecting from thieves, protecting from mixing. And then we get to my favorite part, the doctor. Now pay very close attention here, because this is where things start getting wild. Our rich friend offers to pay for medical care. Simple, right? Wrong. The doctor doesn't even try to help. He doesn't even look at the patient. He just leaves. But the real kicker, the rain. Right when our rich friend tries to help this poor person, boom, sudden rainstorm. Pretty convenient timing, don't you think? Almost like someone doesn't want these two groups mixing. Now, I know what you're thinking, but MatPat from the multiverse, isn't this just showing that some people are mean? Oh, you sweet summer child, if only it were that simple. Because what we're seeing here isn't just mean people, it's a system. A system designed to keep these groups apart. Think about it, perfect weather for the rich kids, but instant rain when they try to help someone poor. Guards that show up in seconds when groups start mixing. Doctors who won't even look at poor patients. These aren't random things, they're patterns, and patterns mean planning. And the biggest clue of all, how our rich friend can't even lift the poor person to help them. Almost like there's something literally keeping these groups from coming together. But this is just the start of our story, because if you think this is bad, just wait until you see what happens when we look deeper into how this world really works. The weather control, the guards, the doctors, they're all just pieces of a much bigger puzzle. A puzzle that's going to show us just how dark this world really is. But before we get there, we need to talk about something even more shocking, something that changes everything we think we know about this world. Because those perfect sunny days, they're not just nice weather, they're a weapon. And I will prove it. And that's where things get really interesting. Because remember those rich friends from earlier? Well, they don't just ignore the poor, they actively try to hunt them down. Let's raid the closet, they say. But why? Over some stolen pearls. There's something bigger going on here. But before we dig into that, let's talk about something that might seem small, but is actually huge: soap and water. Our rich friend is trying to help this injured person, and what's the first thing she needs? Basic cleaning supplies, you know, the stuff most of us take for granted, but here's the wild part, she has to sneak around just to get it. Think about that for a second. In a house full of rich people, she has to act like she's just getting some water because she's thirsty. She can't even tell her friends she's helping someone, but why? Why would helping someone be such a big secret? And here's where it gets crazy. While she's trying to help this person, we get something that seems like just a random news report. But, oh boy, is it more than that? The news anchor drops this little bombshell. Flooding is predicted in one of the worst floods imaginable, since people can now control the weather. Wait, people can control the weather. Let that sink in for a minute. In this world, people don't just have wealth, they can control the actual weather. Remember that perfect sunny day from earlier? Yeah, that wasn't just nice weather, that was made weather. But who gets to control it? Well, we've only seen the rich folks enjoying perfect weather so far. But it gets even better. Our injured friend says something really interesting. Can't have your rich friends knowing you're helping a poor person, right? This isn't just some random comment. This is someone who knows the rules. Rules that say rich and poor people shouldn't mix. And look at how our rich friend has to hide everything she's doing, sneaking around her own house, making up fake parties, lying to her friends, all just to help someone who's hurt. Does this sound like a normal society to you, or does it sound like something else? Something more controlled? And here's another weird thing. When she's trying to help him, she says it's her first surgery ever. Now, you might think this is just because she's young, but think about it. If she's rich enough to have weather control, wouldn't she have access to real doctors? So why is she doing surgery herself? Unless the real doctors won't help poor people at all. Remember that doctor from earlier who wouldn't even look at the injured person? That wasn't just one mean doctor. That was the system working exactly as it's supposed to. But here's where things start getting really dark. Our friend says she won't let him suffer alone. But why would helping someone have to mean suffering? Unless there's some kind of punishment for mixing between rich and poor people. And just when you think things can't get any weirder, we've got that flood warning. Now, in a world where rich people can control the weather, a flood isn't just a natural disaster. It's something someone chose to make happen. But why? And why now? Well, that's where we need to look at even more evidence, because this flood, it's not just water. It's a weapon, and once you understand how it's being used, you'll never see this world the same way again. But to understand that, we need to look at something even more shocking. But here's where things get even weirder, folks. We just saw something that might seem small, but trust me, it's huge. Our rich friend is looking for snacks, but notice how she says, "What's a snack?" This isn't just someone being silly. This is someone who has never had to get their own food before, ever. And then we get to something really interesting, the potions. Did you catch that? There are potions of regeneration just being thrown in the garbage. Think about that for a second. They're throwing away medicine that could help people. But why? Because they're moving on to levitation potions instead. That's right, in this world, they're literally throwing away things that could heal people just because they want to float instead. But wait, it gets better. Remember our injured friend from earlier? The one who needed help so badly? These potions could have fixed him right up, but instead they're in the garbage while rich people play with floating. But here's the real kicker. Our friend has to steal these potions from the garbage to help someone. In her own house, she can't just ask for them. She can't just say, "Hey, can I have those potions you're throwing away?" No, she has to sneak around like a thief in her own home just to help someone. And speaking of sneaking around, did you notice how many times she has to hide? She's constantly diving behind things, making up excuses, trying to keep this person's secret. But from what? From who? It's her own house. Unless maybe it's not about the house at all. Maybe it's about something bigger. Then we get to the beach scene. And oh boy, this is where things get really interesting. Because our poor friend, he's not there to swim or have fun. He's there with a metal detector. Now, our rich friend doesn't even know what it is. She thinks it's a golf club. But this isn't just about her not knowing what poor people use. This is about how these people have to live. Think about it. Rich people in this world can control the weather, have magic potions, and throw away medicine like it's nothing. Meanwhile, poor people are walking around with metal detectors looking for scraps. But here's the thing. It's not just that they're poor. It's that they have to use these old tools. They have to dig through garbage. They have to steal medicine that's being thrown away. This isn't just a gap between rich and poor. This is a system where one group literally throws away what the other group desperately needs. Where one group can change the weather while the other group digs in the sand with metal detectors. Where medicine that could help people gets tossed in the trash because levitation is more fun. And remember that flood that's coming? The one that everyone keeps talking about? Well, keep your eyes on that because it's about to show us something even more shocking about how this world really works. Because when you can control the weather, a flood isn't just bad luck, it's a choice. And someone is choosing to make this flood happen right when these two groups start mixing. But to understand why that matters, we need to look at something even more disturbing. Something that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Because those regeneration potions, they're not just medicine. They're proof of something much, much darker. And this is where things get really wild because we're about to see just how deep this divide goes. Our rich friend doesn't just not know what a metal detector is, she doesn't even know what a satellite dish is. But wait, it gets better. She thinks it might be for serving food. Now you might be thinking, MatPat, maybe she's just silly. But oh ho ho, my friends, this is way more than just someone being dissy. This is designed ignorance. Think about it, she literally asks if they get Netflix on a satellite dish. She has no idea how the other half of her world lives. Zero. Zip. Nada. But here's the really crazy part. The poor people in this world are stuck using old technology that the rich people don't even recognize anymore. While rich folks are streaming whatever they want, poor people are trying to catch 2 or 3 channels with satellite dishes they have to dig up from the beach. And speaking of digging things up, let's talk about that mud. Because this isn't just any mud. This is about to show us something super important about how this world works. The poor kids are gathering mud to mess with those rich, snooty girls. But why mud? Why not something else? Well, that's where things get interesting. Because right after we see the poor kids plotting with their mud, where do we end up? A spa with mud baths. That's right, the same mud that poor people are using as a weapon, rich people are using for beauty treatments. But it gets even better. Who's running the spa? The same guy who was the doctor earlier. And the news anchor? Now hold on to your fancy spa robes because this is where it gets wild. This one person keeps showing up in different roles. He's a doctor who won't help poor people. He's a news anchor warning about floods. And now he's a spa worker about to give mud treatments. But the really crazy part, he calls himself the working class. Think about that for a second. This one guy represents all of what the rich people think the working class is. He's their doctor, their news source, their service worker, everything. And when our rich friend says she never noticed Al before, he gets upset. Because he's not supposed to be noticed, he's supposed to be invisible until the rich need something. But here's where it gets even darker. Remember those poor kids gathering mud? They're planning to use it against the rich girls. Meanwhile, the rich girls are about to pay for mud treatments at a spa. It's literally the same mud. But when poor people use it, it's a weapon. When rich people use it, it's a luxury. This isn't just about rich people not knowing how poor people live. This is about a whole system that's built to keep these groups separate. The rich don't even understand basic things like satellite dishes. They don't recognize the same person showing up in different jobs. They throw away healing potions while poor people are getting hurt. They pay for mud treatments while poor people are gathering mud from the ground. But we're about to see something even crazier. Because remember that flood that keeps getting mentioned? Well, it's about to show us something about this world that changes everything. Because in a world where rich people can control the weather, where they have magic potions, where they don't even know what a satellite dish is, a flood isn't just water, it's something much, much worse. But to understand what this flood really means, we need to look at one more piece of evidence. Something that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Something that's about to show us just how dark this world really is. And this is where everything comes together in the most shocking way possible. Remember that mud the poor kids were collecting? Well, now we see exactly what they did with it. But it's not just about throwing mud, it's about something way bigger. Let's look at what's really happening in this spa scene. First, we've got our mysterious worker, the same guy who's been the doctor and the news anchor, now working at a spa. But pay attention to what he does. He puts the poor kids' trash and mud into the rich people's treatments. This isn't just a prank, this is revenge. But here's where it gets really interesting. When the rich girls realize they're sitting in trash, what's their first complaint? That the place was free. Not that they're covered in garbage and garbage. Not that they've been tricked, but that they didn't have to pay. Think about how messed up that is. They care more about something being free than about sitting in actual trash. And those cucumbers, oh boy, those cucumbers tell us something huge about this world. The rich girls get mad because they're not gold-foiled cucumbers. That's what they expect. Regular cucumbers are literally an insult to them. This isn't just rich people being picky. This is a whole system where even vegetables have to be covered in gold to be acceptable. But wait, it gets even better. When things start going wrong, what happens? Fire. Our rich friends suddenly burst into flames. Now, in a normal world, this would be the biggest deal ever. But here, they just jump in the mud like it's nothing. Because remember, they can control the weather. They're used to controlling everything. But for once, they can't control the situation. And then we get to the makeover scene. Watch this closely because it's not just about bad makeup. The poor kids are deliberately making the rich girls look silly. But why? Because this is the only power they have. They can't control the weather. They can't get Netflix. They have to dig up satellite dishes from the beach. But for one moment, they can make the rich people look as powerless as they feel. But here's the really wild part. Our friend who's been trying to help bridge these two worlds, she's caught in the middle. She tries to say we can all get along and help each other. But look what happens, nobody listens. The system doesn't want these groups to get along. It doesn't want them to help each other. The whole thing is designed to keep them apart. And that's why this 1-star review thread at the end is so important. Think about it, these rich girls just got covered in trash, set on fire, and given terrible makeovers. But their big threat is a bad review. This shows us just how broken this system is. The rich can't even imagine real consequences anymore. They think everything can be solved with reviews and ratings. But remember that flood that's coming? Well, we're about to see why it matters more than ever. Because in a world where rich people use gold cucumbers and poor people dig up satellite dishes, where one group controls the weather while the other collects mud from the beach, where even trying to help someone gets you set on fire, this flood isn't just about water. It's about washing away something much bigger. But to understand what this flood really means, we need to look at one final piece of evidence. Something that's been right in front of us this whole time. Something that's about to show us the darkest truth about this world yet. And here, ITIS folks, the moment that proves everything we've been talking about. Let's break down what is happening here, because this is where all the pieces come together. First, we've got these bags of gold bricks. Not money, not jewelry, actual gold bricks. But watch what happens. The poor boys aren't trying to steal them. Instead, they're trying to get attention from the rich girls. This isn't about taking stuff anymore, it's about trying to connect. But the system won't let them. How do we know? 2 words, bodyguards. That's right, the rich people in this world don't just have security, they have guards specifically to keep poor people away. Think about that. They're not protecting stuff. They're protecting against mixing between classes. It's literally their job to keep these groups apart. But here's where it gets really interesting. Our two friends try to escape all this drama by going to a coffee shop. Simple, right? Wrong? Even this tiny moment shows us how broken this world is. The poor friend calls it expensive and talks about splurging, while for the rich friend, it's just a normal coffee shop. They can't even buy coffee without being reminded of their different worlds. And then we get to the really juicy part. They start talking about how their friends act. The rich ones are spoiled but try to be nice, while the poor ones do whatever they want. But pay attention to what they're really saying. The rich kids are excused because they haven't had the experience, while the poor kids are blamed for struggling. Even when they're trying to understand each other, they can't escape these labels. But wait, it gets even better. When they try to make a plan to help everyone get along, what happens? Boom, they get caught. And not just caught, they get accused of betrayal. That's the exact word they use. Think about what that means. In this world, just talking to someone from another class is seen as betraying your own people. And then right at this perfect moment, what happens? The flood. That flood we've been hearing about since the beginning. The one that was predicted by our mystery man on the news. But notice something really important. He said people can control the weather. So this flood, it's not an accident. Someone chose to make this happen right when these two groups started to come together. This is huge, people, because it tells us something terrifying about this world. The system isn't just keeping people apart with guards and gold cucumbers and different TV technology. It's willing to use actual natural disasters to stop people from different classes from becoming friends. But there's something even more shocking hiding in this scene. Something that tells us exactly why this world is so afraid of rich and poor people coming together. Because when you look carefully at what happens next, think about it, we've seen weather control, magic potions, stolen satellite dishes, and gold-covered vegetables. But what's the one thing that scares this world more than anything? Two people from different classes becoming friends. And what happens the moment they try? A flood threatens to destroy everything. And this is where everything finally comes together. Remember all those weird little details we've been tracking? The weather control, the metal detectors, the bodyguards, the gold cucumbers. Well, get ready, because we're about to see what they all really mean. First, let's look at what our mystery man says. Now, with the world destroyed by this flood, I'll never have to work 3 miserable jobs again. Boom. Remember how he kept showing up as different workers? He wasn't just playing different roles, he was literally working 3 different jobs. This is the truth about the working class in this world. They're not just poor, they're forced to be everything for the rich people. But here's where it gets wild. When they're trying to survive the flood, what happens? The rich kids immediately try to save their Bugatti. Now people know, not supplies, a car. Meanwhile, the poor kids are trying to save everyone with, get this, a metal detector. The same metal detector they were using to dig up satellite dishes. And guess what? It works. This is huge, people, because it shows us exactly how the system was designed to fail. The rich kids have weather control and levitation potions, but they can't stop their own flood. The poor kids have old technology that the rich kids literally laughed at, but that's what saves everyone. The system tried so hard to keep these groups separate that it actually made them need each other. Think about it. Throughout this whole thing, we've seen the rich kids with all these fancy powers. They can control the weather, they have magic potions, they have bodyguards and mansions and gold-covered food. But what happens when the flood comes? None of that helps. Their mansion can't keep the water out. Their levitation potions only save them for a minute. Even their precious Bugatti ends up underwater. Meanwhile, the poor kids who had to dig through trash and steal food, the ones who had to use satellite dishes and metal detectors, they're the ones who know how to actually solve problems. When the rich kids are floating around on levitation potions, the poor kids are figuring out how to stop the flood. But here's the biggest reveal of all. Remember how this whole thing started, with rich kids having a perfect sunny day. Well, now we know the truth. Someone was controlling that weather, just like someone controlled this flood. This whole system wasn't just about keeping rich and poor people apart. It was about making sure rich people never had to deal with real problems. That's why they made it rain when our rich friend tried to help the poor person. That's why they had bodyguards to keep the groups apart. That's why they threw away healing potions and made fun of regular cucumbers. Because if rich and poor people actually worked together, the whole system would fall apart. And that's exactly what happens the minute these groups start working together. Splash, someone tries to flood everything. But here's the irony, the flood actually forces them to work together even more. The rich kids learn that their fancy stuff can't save them. The poor kids show that their old technology is actually super useful. And our mystery man, he reveals that the whole working class system was making people miserable all along. So there you have it. This isn't just a story about rich and poor people. It's about a whole system designed to keep people apart. A system so afraid of people working together that it would rather flood everything than let that happen. But in trying to keep everyone separate, they actually created a world where they needed each other to survive. And speaking of theories that you need to see, YouTube's got another mind-blowing video lined up for you right there on your screen. Click it. Trust me, If you enjoyed uncovering the dark truth behind this world, you're going to love what comes next. Remember, folks, a theory a day keeps the algorithm at play. Until next time, bye-bye.